You're doing
So
great.
my name is Brian Lance, and this is Randy Seabird, and we're out here on this glorious, sunny, warm Wednesday evening, early evening, and waiting for our Walmart order to show up. So if it seems interrupted, that's because of that. But I thought it was a good thing to record this for our YouTube channel because we wanted to bring different perspective on issues that has affected us and all of that. And so I want to start with old man Randy here, who is how old are you?
66.
66 years old. And Randy, like myself, have been incarcerated, but I've been incarcerated for 15 years. Randy here has been incarcerated for how long?
47.
47 years. He has a lot to dive into, and we just wanted to touch base on the issue that came up earlier, in which I asked Randy a question about why he conducts himself a certain way, why he speaks about something in a certain way, and he proceeded to go through his childhood. And I thought instead of saying it just in front of me, it'd be good to record this and share it with the world because people's lives matter, and people can give, especially people in their 50s and above, can give all kinds of wisdom and insights into how they were younger, and give an honest assessment to who they are now and some of the shortcomings and some of just the proclivities and all of that, and just be able to be open and honest about how they've grown, how they have overcome things while still battling some other things. And I believe this man is a great example of all of that rolled and bundled into one. So, Randy, what we were talking about earlier?
About effectively my proclivity, if you will, to come to people's aid in whatever manner is needed. And at the moment, that it was about why I would it wouldn't make a difference what the situation was. If somebody needed help, I don't care if it was violent or just carrying groceries out the grocery store, or uh, somebody needs somebody to talk to, and I can listen. Even though I got a big mouth, and I tend to speak long about things when people think it, why all that? Well, I like details either way.
There was something traumatic that you had asked, that I asked you about, or that you brought up in your childhood. You said, in response to a question I asked, you said because one of your siblings um, was traumatized, I believe.
I had two. They're both passed on now, but I had two mentally handicapped siblings,
That's what you
and
said.
they were bullied. And so, as part of earlier training for my dad, and not necessarily uh, doing it the way I was doing it, I was on the honor roll during elementary school, and I had no problem going and finding the bully and socking him when I find out what happened, that they either one got bullied,
Yep.
and I got whooped, and I whooped, and I got whooped again, but it didn't make a difference because it had to be done. And part of what my dad instilled in me was, first off, about injustice. When you see it and you can do something about it, you have a responsibility to do that.
Hmm.
And secondly, when it comes to family, family sticks together. And that little piece right there, because my oldest brother didn't seem to have that bent himself.
Hmm.
He would go out individually and do things, and we come back and I've got a black eye or whatever. Well, what happened? I said I got in a fight with a bully again. He said, did you beat him up? I know I got whooped. He says, you're gonna let it stay that way? No, I can't tell Dad that. He put a whooping on me too, and then take me over there and fix it with the bully.
So you felt constrained since you were young yourself to stick up for others, starting with your siblings?
Yes.
Both of them were younger?
Yep. And no, both were older, but they were both mentally handicapped.
They were mentally handicapped. So in effect, they were younger.
Oh yeah, in very much effect. And besides that, you find ways to help mentally handicapped deal with life themselves.
Mm.
And my brother,
How did you handle that?
how they handle
Them being mentally handicapped. How did you, as a kid, if you go back to that, how did you feel about that when did you first find out that that's what they were?
I didn't really know they were handicapped because they're siblings, and we all do things that are kind of routine, normal.
And they were older.
Yeah, and I could see little pieces of, I had to keep reiterating things to both of them, even routine. But then they were willing to learn routines, and I find out before I went to prison because I had a mentally handicapped cousin,
Mm-hmm.
and I had volunteered for the Special Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm around, both more mentally handicapped kids. They're more mentally slow, if you will, and then you find ones that are barely, but they all have this common. I'm starting to see the commonality of, you have to find an interest for them, and then they'll start learning routines.
How did your parents handle their?
Well, both were in special education, and they battled hard to do it. When they were, I think my brother was in 4th grade, and my sister was 1 year ahead of him, 5th or 6th.
And how did your parents handle that?
I mean, they lived. As a matter of fact, this helped something later on in life that I shouldn't have been. They because of me taking care of them, always involving them in things.
Mm-hmm.
My mom says, okay. She looks at my sister. Didn't have a real. She'd grab raw food and eat it. So mom's trying to teach her how to cook it.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma had more hand in this. That and now my sister become a good cook. And because of this. But my mom would because there's 6 kids, she'd have my grandma take 1 or 2 of us, and I loved to farm, and it was a farm.
Mm.
And grandma had been a cook in a restaurant, little restaurant, truck stop what it was. And eventually it was given to her as hers. But people were dead head, which means they'd be over in Chicago and couldn't find a load, and they'd set up a meal with her, by their own recipe, and they had to get back for the meal. So they were deadhead. Deadhead means they didn't have a load. They just drove their semi back.
This is both your parents?
This was my grandma who got my sister to. My parents had my grandma helping.
So what did your dad do?
My dad let me have a lot of free reign.
No, I'm asking, what did he do for a living?
Oh, he worked at General Motors, but he hurt his back in the foundry.
And your mom?
And she was a housewife.
So, and do you think they treated your brother and your sisters, your siblings, fairly?
Very.
Very loving. So, did you grow up in a loving family?
Well, yeah, I don't think my dad ever said he loved me, but I could get a hug every once in a while when I did something. We'll just call it extraordinarily helpful.
Okay.
And my mom was a hugger.
So, of the 2 siblings, which one had if they, assuming they're not the same severity of mental health issues, or
well, the brain wasn't developing like ours.
So mental deficiency, development, or not neurological development.
Yeah.
The deficiencies. Which one was worse than the other?
My brother.
His development stasis was more severe.
About 7 years old.
And your sister?
About 9. in,
So not much difference, but
but enough where you could tell she could retain things differently than him. And that's one of the big things about the mentally handicapped is it's not the learning, it's not the doing, in the moment,
Mhm.
it's the retention of it. Like kind of like me, as my memory's getting a little bit shorter, a little more spotty. My retention in a number of things is a lot longer than it will be in others, and I haven't figured that out yet. Which one is more of a tendency to remember? But uh, the 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 being helpful. Oh, and we had uh, a Jewish store owner down the road who, because my dad was on unemployment, and it wouldn't, come on, you got 6 hungry kids, and to make sure we ate, he he did little odd jobs of construction type thing.
your dad.
My dad,
Okay.
but he couldn't do much because he's on disability unemployment,
Right.
and uh, so mom would run a bill, especially with milk, at the grocery store,
Okay.
and she give us money, when dad brought money home, and we take it down to the store, and he refused to take it.
Well, your parents. So your parents were not well off.
Nope,
Were they? Were they considered middle class or lower than that?
working class.
So they're working class, not poor, not middle class per se, but working class.
We had a house which they bought as a frame, and was built by my grandparent. My grandma had 9 brothers, and all of them were within the construction trades. My grandpa,
So it ran in the family, so
yeah,
to speak.
yeah, and so there was always help, to fix the house, and dad was always helping what he could,
Right.
and so we, I mean, with them, and so the house got built. We built the 2 bedrooms on the back, uh, and then divorce happened, but that was when I was 9. But
The divorce between your mother and father.
yes, and then we went on welfare.
How did your brother and sister take that?
Oh, talk about tantrums.
And who stayed with who?
We all stayed with my mom.
Was your mom one of those? Was she a hardy, strong woman?
No.
Or how would you describe your mother?
There was a carpentry accident, construction, where she was going to feed the rabbits, and there's an overhang for the rabbits that slanted, just like the roof, but it's on the side, and the loop on my dad's carpenter pants broke where the hammer was, and just as she stepped out from underneath the overhang to say something, the hammer slid down and hit her in the head, and she got a
Okay.
neuro-
We're going to pause this for a second as we pick up our groceries, and we will pick this back up. All right?
Yeah, oh yeah, most definitely.